Alrighty, here we are at the end of the first row of the Major Arcana Journey of Enlightenment, the end of the row of consciousness of mind. The development of consciousness is represented by this row. So we've made it all the way through, and the lessons of the entire line are culminated in this card, the Chariot. What we have here is the creation of the ego mask, the mind fully actualized and successfully engaging the world. With this card, the period of adolescent searching is over. This is will, this is power, this is victory, this is the fully developed consciousness. All the lessons of the line have been absorbed, and that's shown in the card by symbols in this card from every card in the row, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Here we see the mature adult, the successful, confident, and content personality. This is the ability to control feelings and direct will. This is the mind subduing and utilizing the forces of life. And there's something about being able to control our feelings and direct the mind that is really, that is the root of this, like, willpower, or rather that's the result of this willpower. So let's look at some of the, I'll keep this kind of zoomed out for now as we talk about the symbols in this card that are gathered from the other cards in the row. So here we see the wand from the magician, and here the wand is not held high up to heaven because he's not accessing divine wisdom per se. The wand is low because he's accessing his own will. The veil here and the black and white duality of the sphinxes are reminiscent of the high priestess. The veil is lifted in the front but still down in the back, and I kind of interpret this as he's acting from within the veil, or he's informed by the celestial influence. I mean, I kind of read this as like the veil going over the top and then down the back. So the unconscious is still hidden, but he's sort of like informed by it. The stars here and here on the veil and on his crown are same as the Empress, and he's out in nature here, outside the walls of the city. So that kind of like relates back to the Empress. The Emperor here is represented by this walled city. He's in front of it. He's associated with it and with society, but he's not sort of walled in by it. The wall is a boundary and a barrier. So another way to look at this is the conscious mind saying, this I am and this I am not. Like the mind saying, everything that I am is like within this wall, and everything without is what I am not. Like the consciousness and the mind and the ego is an editor of sorts. And so you could read this walled city as like what is edited by the mind to be included in it, and what's outside is without. Another way, like I said, another way to look at this is that this figure is associated with the city, but he's outside the wall, and he's not walled in by society. He makes his own choices, so to speak. The Hierophant, the Hierophant is doctrine, and I think that is represented by these symbols. I don't know if we can see these clearly on the kilt. I think these show learning, and I almost see like these two shoulder plates as like the initiates. So the lovers, the winged symbol here is the same as the wings on the angel, and then this circle and kind of rod are like the symbols of the lingam and yoni, which is like the symbol of like sexual union and union of love. And the wings are sort of intellect and imagination and spirit, and so that kind of comes over from the Lover's card. And then here we have another triad. So the two dualities here represented by the sphinxes. These last three cards in the row are all dualities. Here the initiates, here the lovers, and then here these sphinxes, which represent like both dualities in the outside world and dualities in our mind, like opposing sort of ideas and forces in our mind. And the will brings, like, the will doesn't resolve those dualities either within the mind or within the outside world, but it kind of forces them to pull in the same direction. It just holds them together, pulling by pure force of will. These two mythical half man, half beasts. Yeah, because without the will, these two dualities would just fly apart. Yeah, this is like really the strength of the will represented here. When these two dualities are brought in control, the mind, which is the chariot, can move through all of the material it conceives of, and that is the movement, or the potential for movement, shown in the chariot. Another interesting thing about the chariot is that there's no physical harness shown between the sphinxes and the chariot itself, which they're intending to pull. What I perceive that is that we are pulled along, or our mind, represented by the chariot, is pulled along by ideas. And we're not tied to any of these ideas. We're not tied to any of these dualities or any sort of mental reality, yet these ideas drive us forward. So I think that's what's meant by this lack of like an actual physical harness between the dualities of idea and the chariot of the mind. And then finally, the block. The charioteer is cast within this block, like fixed. And what I think that represents is like the chariot and the block, more the block represents the material world and that which is manifested. And here the mind is firmly fixed within the material world, and that which the mind manifests is, we are fixed as entities. At the end of this row, we are fixed in our mind as the charioteer is cast into this block. Yeah, another way to look at it is that we as beings are working within, but also stuck in the rationality of the mind, and therefore we are somewhat rigid in what we are able to experience and perceive. This is not, the charioteer doesn't represent the full true self. He represents a persona through which we engage the world, but he doesn't represent our entire being, because we've only sort of developed the conscious mind at this point. We haven't developed like the subconscious and the superconscious / spirit, which all three of those make up the full being. So here we are, have a fully developed mind and consciousness, but we're also locked into that consciousness, locked into that mental mind space, if that makes sense. So for some people, this experience of having the fully developed ego persona and successfully engaging the world, like, that's enough. Some people don't mind being trapped in this like mind block. But for others that want to experience further and dive into the depths of the subconscious, for that, we will invoke the Fool again and make the leap to the next line, and that'll be probably in the video after next. Like I said, I think I'll do an intermission video at the end of this one and just kind of talk about some of the changes I made in this map and stuff. But yeah, if you have any questions about this line or tarot in general, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. And yeah, until then, I wish you all well on your journey. All right, thank you for watching.